start prepping for Q4 tomorrow if you haven't started. Q4 prep and execution is the most important period of time for all of us in the DTC space. And I think it's really important on the creative side to be really well prepared to make sure things run as smoothly as possible. Stocking the pond. What are the things that will actually stock the pond for your business? A good marketing calendar. If you are listening and you are a brand owner or operator and you don't have a fully detailed marketing calendar, you stop me from sleeping at night, okay? It is like a pirate without a treasure map. I love working with Pilot House because while we are a performance marketing agency, we really pride ourselves on caring so much about brand and creative. At Pilot House, we don't just make ads, we craft them. Every edit, every word, every scroll-stopping detail is built with purpose and care, and I truly believe that care drives creativity and creativity drives results. Our attention to both scale and brand allows us to craft strategies that deliver you short-term results while making you long-term successful, which is so important for any DTC brand. If you are curious about learning more about working with Pilot House, you can fill out a lead form at pilothouse.co and let them know you want to go on a brand new ad venture. You don't actually have to say that. You don't have to make a pun. I'm not going to force you to make a pun. Just fill out the lead form. We'd love to chat with you. Hi, welcome back to Ad-venturous, the podcast produced by DTC and hosted by me, Aves. Today, I thought I would kick us off by talking about what I did today. Today was actually a weekend, so I had some time off and I hung out with my nieces and my nephew who are 10, 7, and 3. And I don't have any kids of my own. I love being Auntie Avery, though. It is the greatest joy of my life. I do love making ads, but I think even more than that, just edged out by being Auntie Avery. It is like, again, the biggest joy, pleasure, and honor of my life. So I have read a lot of books about raising children because I think if you are around kids, it's good to be as educated as possible and to help them really grow into the world. It is, again, just like I'm so honored to even have the opportunity to be in their lives that I want to make sure I'm doing the best job I can possibly do. So I've read a lot of books, absorbed a lot of content about what it means to bring a kid up in this world. And something that I've always strived to do is that when they are sort of scattered, really anchoring them and bringing them sort of back down to earth. And I think as an adult, when you're around kids, it's really important to sort of ground them and again, bring them back to earth. I always try to get eye level if we're having like a serious conversation and really simplify things, break it down, and again, just like be that grounding force. And so I was really inspired by that energy when I started putting together all my notes for today's episode, because today I wanted to start what will be sort of a intermittent series on Q4 prep and execution, because it is the most important period of time for all of us in the DTC space. And I think it's really important on the creative side to be really well prepared to make sure things run as smoothly as possible. So that was a little, I feel like even by the end of that, you can tell a little bit of Auntie Avery coming in to come in, ground us all, and help sort of guide us towards some actual tangible next steps we can all take to make Q4 as profitable and fun as possible. I think that there's a lot going on right now. There's the Coldplay concert cheaters, big loser behavior, obviously the Sydney Sweeney ad, everyone is talking about it, but I really wanted to focus today's episode on things that are actually going to drive profitability for your business. We really get caught up these days in trying to have like the best possible take on those American Eagle ads and making content that revolves around what everyone's talking about. But again, Auntie Avery is here. We are grounded. We are thinking about what we actually need to do. And it is already August, which means that you're going to blink and it's going to be September, which is not technically Q4, but it also kind of is, right? Like things just snowball and move so quickly. So it's really important that we all focus up right now and we figure out what we need to do. I'm working with brands right now that are transparently either in the midst of planning Q4 holiday assets, they're getting them shot sort of in the next couple of weeks, or those are already completed and locked in. It is really time to step up and think about what you need to make Q4 successful right now. Do not get distracted by all of the crazy. Do not get distracted by all of the bad ads out there. Start focusing on what you actually need and what you have control over as well. I think this past year has been really turbulent for a lot of brands because of different iterations of trade wars, trade issues, tariffs. We all know it. It has been a traumatizing year for a lot of brand owners. So again, the big focus of all my Q4 themed episodes from now right up until we're done with Q4 is figuring out what we have control over and how we can actually execute to the best of our abilities. So all that being said, like I said, we're grounding, we're thinking about it. What do we actually need to do? What do we have control over? What is important? I thought today's episode would be great to focus on sort of phase 1, which we're in right now, of Q4, which is stocking the pond. I said stocking the pond so much last year on different webinars, different podcasts, around the Palette House Slack channels that I was bullied for it incessantly by both clients that I work with as well as my coworkers. I said it all the time because it is so important and it is worth saying all the time. Stocking the pond is going to fundamentally change the way that you can make money during Q4. It's a prime time to fish. We all know that. Q4 is wonderful. Sometimes it feels like we throw bombs into lakes and the fish just pop out. But that's not a very sustainable way to do things, in my opinion. And so stocking the pond to me, it is all about different creative ways that we can bring people into the world of our brands and make sure that they're primed and ready to shop. And also, hopefully, make sure that we don't have to spend precious ad dollars on driving those conversions when the time comes. So interest in your brand, it does spike during Q4. Obviously, people are shopping much differently than they're shopping more, they're excited, we're gifting, we're looking for deals, it's Black Friday. Things are just completely different in Q4, but things are also very expensive. And so again, making sure that we've attracted a ton of eyeballs that we don't have to pay for when we start getting these Black Friday sales live, that is going to fundamentally change the way that you run Q4. You can, what do people say? Take that to the bank. Like, that is advice you can take to the bank. Or also, it's like, in my own language, I pinky promise it will really change the way that your Q4 shakes out. If you have eyeballs, if you have interest that you don't have to then double pay for, because as we all know, costs are pretty outrageous in Q4, it is going to make all the difference. And so, like I mentioned, this episode, we're really going to focus on phase 1, which is stocking the pond and how to do it. So now is the time, if you haven't already, to start strategizing around how you are going to stock your pond. Every pond is different. Every pond is beautiful, but it is important to understand what your pond requires. Try to analyze last year's activities, try to figure out where there's opportunity to maybe stock the pond earlier, where things went wrong, where things went right. I know it is the summertime and you want to be outside. I was just outside eating ice cream with the kids. It was phenomenal. Ocean looked fantastic. But I'm imploring you, now is the time to start thinking about what happened last year during Q3 and Q4, looking at results and really digging into them. Some of the most important work comes from understanding what the highest yield efforts are. So defining your highest impact pond stocking pillars, that sentence would kill a Victorian child. But doing that is going to be very important. So what are the things that will actually stock the pond for your business? Building out your email list is probably the most common and the easiest to achieve. And we all know in some ways how to do this. Number 1, capturing email at purchase. Duh. Having a great email sign up, pop up, or activation on our website, really important. We've been thinking about this a lot at Pilot House. We've got some really cool partners with our CRO team, and we've really been digging into like what makes a good email pop-up. Our retention team masters at this, but it's so important to understand, again, when that works on your website and why to do it. I love a transparent queen, and I am a transparent queen, and I'm going to say I'm not the best person for that. We have an insane team of retention and email marketers at Pilot House. So if that is something that you're not sure of, if you don't really know about your flows and how they're all shaking down, let us know. You can also, big shout out, listen to the world's best email and retention podcast hosted by my coworker, Jordan Gordon. He is exceptional at breaking these concepts down. But yeah, I'd say first of all, think about how you're building up that email list. If you're not sure, call us over at Pilot House. Jogo is a beast at audits. He loves to look at brands. He loves to look at emails. So go for it. Book a call with him. You will get a ton of value out of it. But also start to think about things like what happens as we get closer to major moments, and where do we start to see shopping patterns actually shift for your product and brand. So you typically start to see in different verticals, different impacts of Q4 pop up at different times. If you have a really highly giftable product, things probably start heating up a little bit quicker, especially if you're a very well-known brand. I work with a brand who does fit into that category, who is just an immediately super giftable, pretty well-known product. And we start to see things heat up for gifting quite early because people want to shore up their inventory. So really pay attention to things like that. Other brands, a good example would probably be something in the sort of jewelry vertical where it's more of a last minute gift push, and it might not be like, I am planning to buy X, Y, or Z for my partner, and instead you just see an ad and make an impulse purchase. Start to note those things down. Again, look at last year's data, the year before, figure out when shopping patterns actually start to shift around your product. Next sort of pillar to start thinking about is, when does gifting messaging actually drive a swing in performance? Hopefully a positive swing, but when does that actually resonate? It really links with that first one. Where does the shift in behavior happen? And then where does the messaging actually make a difference? Because what might happen is, like I mentioned, jewelry as a vertical of being a little bit more in the moment, responsive to the ad. See if you can change that and start getting that gifting messaging out there earlier. See if you've tried that before, if it's worked, yes or no, and you can really start mixing that into your strategy for stocking the pond. The next thing would definitely be, when we're looking at stocking the pond, and this is where it gets a little bit more on the technical side, but start thinking about your channel mix strategy. So whether you are sort of a full stack brand operator, you're doing the media planning as well as the content planning. Even if you're just on the content side of things, check in with the folks on the media planning side of your work to figure out what the channel mix strategy is heading into Q4 and also Q3. One thing that happened to me last year, I feel like I've talked about this a couple times, is that I was working with a brand. We had a really solid strategy. Things did end up going really well, but we started spending on AppLovin, and we spent well into the six figures very, very quickly. It was bananas, all within a month of like exponential growth and performance on that platform. And I was terrified for my life. It was the hardest thing that's ever happened to me because I didn't plan for it. There's no way to plan for it, but I think it's really key to note that sort of misstep in my own preparation where all of a sudden I had this really high need for short form video content that I hadn't accounted for. So really digging into, again, where are we thinking about spending money? Where are the dollars going? Because that directly ties into your ability to plan as a creative strategist. So really, really important to figure out, where are the dollars going to be spent? Because there's so much nuance now, even between platforms like TikTok and Meta. What works is pretty different. So again, really figuring out what the channel mix is going to be to the best of our abilities. You never know when something like AppLovin is just going to jump out at you and you're not going to have a life for a couple of months, but those things happen and they're actually really fun. It was fun to ride the wave, but yeah, really figure out where the dollars are being spent so you can start thinking about what type of content is required of each of those platforms. Another layer to this sort of pawn stocking / pre-pawn stocking phase is really digging in and analyzing creative from last year. Understanding your top creative helps you understand your upcoming creative needs like nothing else. Stop looking at what other people are doing. This drives me nuts, where it's like, okay, a lot of people are making fake billboard ads, so I'm going to plan to make fake billboard ads for Q4. Stop. you're on the wrong path because all of that content looks the same. It's not really stopping the scroll. What actually worked for your brand last year is going to be sort of fundamentally what you need to base your plans for this year off of. I like to think of Q1, Q2, Q3 as testing grounds for Q4. We're always sort of in that ramp up period. So you should start revisiting sale ads, product launch ads, and really strong evergreen content to really figure out what type of layout, what type of copy has been working for you over this past year. To sort of identify your top ads, I like to break it down in the following categories, like I just mentioned. So I start with sale. What sale ads from the whole year have worked quite well? And I do this exercise for Q1, 2, and 3 as we get into it from this year. And then I also go back and do it retroactively just for Q4 the year before. So best to identify, like I said, those sale ads, product drop ads, as well as evergreen creative to really figure out what works the best for your brand. I would recommend as well digging into, if you're working on Meta, any kind of demographic data around your top performers as well. So who's actually driving those conversions? Really important to know and understand as we think about personas. Last week we talked about tiering products off for each persona. It gets really complicated, but if you have that all set up going into Q4, you're printing money, you're laughing, you're having a good time. You have the capacity to take things on like AppLovin that might just pop up out of nowhere like whack-a-mole. So this planning, so important. If you don't have conclusive data or really strong signals on a suite of creative for either of these three major categories that I just defined, you definitely want to immediately put together a plan to find winners in those three distinct categories throughout September and October, or you are actively leaving money on the table. I will probably say something similar in every Q4 episode about leaving money on the table for certain planning measures, but this is a really big one. Those three categories of ads drive performance throughout Q4. So if you don't have ads that are ready to dupe and reskin in those three categories, you're in danger, girl. I'm scared for you. Please send me a DM. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Hit us up in the comment section. You're making me anxious. I need to know. We need to help figure it out. But yeah, if you don't have something ready to go, now is the time where it's sort of alarm emoji, start figuring it out. Like I said, I have a very systemic way that I go about this work of analyzing creative as well as planning for new creative. If the analyzing part is what's really stumping you, again, feel free to actually reach out. I said it in a kind of joking way just before, but you can reach out and we can book an audit and go through things and analyze why things have worked or haven't worked. I will be sharing some resources in the next few weeks about how I approach Q4 planning in general on LinkedIn. And I will be including that just sort of a really basic template to input all of this data, give you a nice way to analyze it, and then also plan for what's coming. I also think that something I do within these three buckets of sale, product drop / kind of restock, product news, and evergreen is in each of those distinct buckets. So let's use sale ads as an example. I bucket that bucket into another three buckets. Yeah, we love the titration of analyzing content over here at Ad-venturous. But once I find, I'm looking at sale ads, what worked, what didn't work, when I start to go into the planning stage instead of the full-on analyzing stage, I think about what do I need to have based off of this. So I'm looking at all the sale ads from this past year to date. I'm looking at sale ads from last Q4. What do I absolutely need to shore up? What should I have? And what is nice to have? Thinking about things in this way will help you understand what styles are make or break for your brand versus which styles will fuel additional growth for you this year. And then finally, what styles of content could potentially go above and beyond and just catapult you into these sort of record-breaking days and hours that we all love reporting on during Q4. A big part of planning for Q4 is about lightening the load in November. In case you couldn't tell by my AppLovin story, it's really important to consider everything when we're in this phase, sort of August, September, to really meticulously plan so that you have space in October, November, December to do crazy shit like AppLovin or a different platform, or if you hit really high scale, you need to have space to figure that out when you're in it. So doing as much planning as you can before you hit that sort of high scale potential period is really going to save your tushy. I don't know why I said tushy. I didn't write that down. I've never said tushy once in my life, but it's going to save your tushy. One really easy way to do this, sort of in the vein of lightening the load for November and thinking about creative resourcing, is start thinking about evergreen sale ads. This is like the oldest trick in the book, but when we get into heavy Q4 times, ads that just say sale tend to do pretty well. So think about ads that are generic enough to keep them on, but still create a lot of interest and excitement and curiosity around that time. An example of this is if you run a lot of tiered offers throughout the year, hopefully you have listened to my nagging and kind of bragging about preparedness, and you have already tested and you know what your highest percentage off will be. Simply make ads that say save up to blank percent. One thing that I find with brands and finding a sales style that works really well is if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if you know that you are going to be running something very similar, that you are going to have multiple weekends or flash sales throughout Q4 where you're going to go to the same sort of max percentage off if tiered offers everything, make a bunch of ads that are not specific to seasonal moments that say on now, save up to 25% off or whatever it is. So you can toggle them on and off as the sales pop up. Having something that performs that you can just turn on and off is honestly game changing and a lifesaver. Like I said, all in the vein of lightening that load for November, really helpful if you can get these done. And like I said, it does just tend to work, that kind of generic sale messaging around that time. So really start to think about those. I think the more time you give an ad in the account, the better. So again, really thinking about yourself in November sounds a little selfish, but it is the way to prep for Q4. Some of this is also about like being realistic, because the reality is for really high scale brands last year, we were creating net new content for the entirety of Black Friday weekend and launching them within the same day. Record breaking hours happened on the brands that I was working pretty closely with because I did not take my foot off the gas pedal for like an hour during that weekend. The name of the game was creative diversity and also creative agility. So I was constantly in the account, maybe too much, looking at what was working. And I was also specifically looking at comments. How were people interacting with ads? What were they saying about ads? And when there were ads that people responded really well to, I was finding that really lo-fi EGC, which we covered recently, employee generated content in like a warehouse setting, was working really well. So I started getting really weird and unhinged with the types of copy overlays I was putting on video content that I knew worked really well, because I was almost in an environment where I was like being egged on by the comment section and they were responding so well to my weird unhinged jokes that I just kept doubling the ante. And again, those ads ended up being some of our top performers, the ones that we created and launched in the same weekend. I want to go on the record and say that I do think the mindset grindset people are super lame and tacky. I'm a huge work-life balance girly, and I think someone on the creative side needs to understand that you need space to do creative work. So you need to go for a walk in nature, and then figure out what's going to be a good angle for the brand that you're working with. I do feel that in my soul, but I do think that Q4 is just a different beast. And if you want to start making, like I said, those record breaking hours and days happen, you need to understand the name of the game. And if you don't feel like making ads throughout one weekend of your entire year, then maybe play a different sport if the name of the game is intimidating or upsetting to you. But that is just sort of what it takes to actually win. And yeah, there's not much else I can say. It's just all about, like I said, preparing, figuring out what you need, doing that analytic work to come up with a plan, and then give yourself the space to make crazy moves during peak season of Q4. I've been talking a lot about ad styles and how to stock the pond with different ad styles, different approaches, figuring that out for your brand. But what I want to talk about now, which I think is really fundamental to Q4 prep, is having a good marketing calendar. This is not an exciting, sexy subject to talk about, but it is so critical. If you are listening and you are a brand owner or operator and you don't have a fully detailed marketing calendar, I actually hate you. You make me so incredibly anxious. It is wild. You stop me from sleeping at night, okay? It is like a pirate without a treasure map. it is wild, dog. Like, having no plans that are cemented and not thinking about things at least 2 months in advance, you are making me crazy. You're scaring me again. Please call us over at Pilot House. We can help you with this. Or maybe if it's really bad and you're really disorganized, don't call us because it might make me too anxious. But anyway, if you don't have a marketing calendar prepped, you're not even leaving money on the table. You're like burning money at that point. In the next couple of weeks, like I said, I will be dropping some templates over on LinkedIn, and one of them is going to be a marketing calendar. So again, if you don't currently have one, I don't really want to hear about it. I just want you to use that template and start putting one together because it's so necessary to your success. Like, I am imploring you to dupe and use the free template when I post it on LinkedIn. It is very important. I've talked about this before, but summer and September, it's prime time to be testing offers for the big show in November. And I just highly doubt that if you don't have a marketing calendar, you are 100% sure of what type of offer works best for your brand. I just don't think that's possible. If you're the type of person who doesn't have a marketing calendar, then you are definitely the type of person who has not offer tested. And again, you make me anxious. You freak me out. You're scaring me. Figure it out. If you need help, please call us. If you don't have a marketing calendar, like I said, I've been poo-pooing you a lot, but here are some of the things that you're going to want to include and that are included in the template, but just some things to think about. Number one would be seasonal moments. So you really want to bookmark these. Start thinking about whether or not you also need to source assets for these seasonal moments throughout Q4. I talked a little bit at the beginning about brands that I work with. We've already done this or we're in the middle of doing it. So sometimes when we start thinking about seasonal moments, when we're putting together our marketing calendar, we also start thinking about, we will be maybe launching special bundles for the holidays. We need photography that captures those bundles and also looks cute and holiday adjacent and friendly. If you don't have that stuff, you need that stuff. You need it right now. You're really scaring me again. Also start thinking about creator or user generated content when you are looking at those seasonal moments as well. So do you want sort of like Christmas morning CGC unboxings of your content? Did that work for you last year? Do you need to source more of it? Start doing it now, okay? Especially if you're like looking for employee generated content, put a tree up in the office and just start filming stuff. It doesn't matter. Get prepared. Important note as well, I find a lot of brands miss this, is really consider ad usage when you are looking at the sort of holiday shoots. So if you haven't done that, again, you're scaring me, blah, 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 we already know. But if you're starting to plan your holiday shoots now, really think about what you need for ads and really start analyzing ads from last year that worked well. Something that I see a lot is pattern behavior in sale content for different brands. So a lot of the times, we tend to see very similar styles work for the same brand. So if you have a piece of photography that you were able to slap an overlay on and it just cranked last year, get an updated version of that. This is something else. Again, I feel like this is the most mean I've ever been, I guess, to people listening. But if you don't have your holiday shoots planned, please give us a call. Specifically give me a call, give me a message. We can help set that up for you, figure out what you need, and then execute it in-house at Pilot House. We've got a great studios team. But yeah, really make sure that you think about ad usage. I find a lot of brands don't, and then they don't leave sort of that classic blank space to input ad information, like actual copy overlay. So really, like, if you aren't the one who's dealing with ad performance day over day, if you're more of a creative director type, start considering whether or not you want to bring in some folks who are a little bit more knowledgeable of the ads that have been working. Just really make sure that you're capturing content that's going to work in ads. I've seen a lot of brands also come to us at Pilot House with a ton of assets, but none of them are ad friendly and none of them have anything to do with the same universe that their top performing ads work in. So then they have to double up and do another shoot, and that's just expensive and everyone hates it. So really make sure you're considering ad usage when we start capturing that content, specifically for seasonal moments. So when we're thinking about these marketing calendars, thinking about seasonal moments, obviously holidays that everybody knows, but also start marking opportunities for gifting versus self-shopping. I think that's really important to consider. So just pointing out in your own calendar, is this strictly gifting? Is it gifting and self-shopping? Is it just kind of purchasing for yourself, really think about those considerations as well. And then really think about any opportunities versus challenges that might come about just because of the cyclical calendar. So start thinking about like what days holidays fall onto. Start thinking about any reason that costs might go up and down, and really try to plan out within your marketing calendar where the peaks and valleys are for your Q3 and Q4. That fundamentally changes the game in that you're not being as reactive. So if you look at last year's data, you start putting together your marketing calendar, you can start being really cool and awesome and empowered and planning promos around those dips in performance. Okay. I feel like this whole episode is like an ad for having a marketing calendar that works. But that situation I just went through, it is so important to know when your peaks and valleys are so that you can put that into your marketing calendar instead of just willy-nilly firing off sales. Are you serious? Again, it's giving pirate without a treasure map. It's giving, I don't know, anyone without a map. It's wild work to not have a marketing calendar, but I see it all the time. Another thing you want to consider when you're putting together your marketing calendar, other than the obvious seasonal moments of Q4, the things that everyone is aware of, are brand specific moments. So brand moments, I tend to boil them down to things like restocks or also product launches are really important. I gotta say, if you're planning to launch products during Q4, it's probably best to already have a product launch strategy. If you don't, if you've got new stuff dropping and you don't really know what you usually do, this is kind of new, that's okay. Just try to figure out what the core angles are around these products and figure out again, do you have the assets you need? Are they actually ad appropriate? And if you intend to sort of product seed / leverage UGC or CGC, start thinking about that now. Content creators, just like us, will get busier and busier. So if you have people that you prefer to work with, start booking them now to make sure, again, that you have a foolproof plan and you are not leaving any money on the table or any treasure in the chest. I don't know. I've used like 12 analogies, but just make it happen, Captain. It's really important. Think about as well any opportunity in this sort of brand moments category for brand themed sales. There are a lot of opportunities for just seasonal moments around sales during Q4, but start thinking about, is it your brand's birthday? Is it your CEO's birthday during Q3, Q4? Is it just like a nice person on your team's birthday? Are there any reasons outside of the typical sort of seasonal purposes that you can get a sale going or something exciting that just feels really branded? That is another thing that's going to kind of catapult you to a whole new level of planning and scale during Q4. Because again, like the main point about marketing calendars is that they help you understand, if you're doing the work of going back and looking at the data from previous years, they really help you understand where those peaks and valleys are, and they help you just plan for them. I think that a big theme I see from a lot of brand owners and operators during Q4 is a reactiveness that isn't always conducive to maximizing profit. And so just having a plan makes everyone feel more settled and makes everyone feel really good about what we're doing and where we're headed. That was a lot of ranting about having a plan and making sure that you are organized. Like I said, over the next couple weeks, I'll start dropping some tools that I specifically talked about. So a really easy to follow template to analyze and plan for your creative delivery. I'll drop that on LinkedIn. I'll also drop just a very templated marketing calendar. That one, like I said, I don't want to hear about it if you're using it. If you need to use that marketing calendar template and you haven't put one together yet and we're in August, I don't want to hear about it. It will stress me out. If you want to stress me out, you can let me know. And like I said a couple times throughout this episode, if these are things that are really worrying you and you're not really sure how you're going to source enough creative, what kind of creative you need, what the channel mix is going to be, if you're not sure how your email flows are being built to help stock the pond, all of these things are things that we live and breathe to do at Pilot House. So if you're not sure, if you want a second set of eyes, reach out. We'd love to chat, run an audit, see what's going on underneath the hood. It's just as exciting for us as it is for you guys. Well, I guess I'm just speaking for myself. I really love it. Even if you want to DM me a piece of creative and say, analyze this, please do it. It's very interesting to me. But yeah, all that to say, we are experts in this. We've been doing it for years. I have seen a lot of Q4 anxiety from different brands that I've worked with. And There's nothing like funnier than really smashing it out of the park with a brand during Q4 who were previously really anxious about it. Like, to me, Q4 is my favorite time of the year. It's why I work in digital marketing. I was saying this to one of the clients that I work quite closely with the other day. It makes me feel like a Who in Whoville getting all kerbobbled, and the Grinch is going to come up, just to let you all know, a lot as I talk about Q4. I will watch the Grinch every single day. The Jim Carrey one, obviously. I would watch it today in August if I could. Yeah, I might. Nobody's stopping me. I might go watch The Grinch. I have gotten really off topic here, but the point of the episode is start prepping for Q4 tomorrow if you haven't started. And if you need any help, please reach out. We would love to help over at Pilot House. Like I said, we've been doing it for a long time and we all are really big nerds about it and we all have a really good time. We love watching the Shopify numbers climb and soar during the entirety of Q4. Well, during the whole year, but specifically in Q4 because the numbers get pretty bananas. But yeah, I'll stop there before I talk about the Grinch anymore. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, we'll be dropping those references and those templates for you guys to use. Give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to the podcast. And I hope to see you guys next week. Thank you.